How we doing, lads?
Very well. Very well.
Excited to chat about payments and perps and prediction markets. Literally three of my favorite things on earth. So that's going to be fun. OK, can we do a quick self-intro here?
I'm Matthew. I'm working at Katana, which is a new layer 2 incubated by Polygon and GSR, focused on DeFi and mostly leading the institutional liquidity and other initiatives related to that.
Hi everyone, I'm Felix from fun.xyz. We do payment aggregation working with companies like Polymarket, Katana, and Relay.
Amazing. I'm Pat from Relay. We are fast cross-chain, same-chain swapping, basically making transacting across chains as simple and seamless as online payments.
OK, so simple, seamless has come up a couple times. You guys definitely are trying to abstract away a lot of what your products do and kind of make it simple and seamless. What do you think, or what's the biggest point of friction that you think still exists and like that people would be surprised to hear?
I think it has to be the challenges to go, multi-chain very quickly and very seamlessly. It can be a very binary choice for a user or partner whether or not you have the support or integration to be able to get to a certain chain, and to be able to kind of provide that to a lot of wonderful partners like Fun and Katana, I think has been really one of the reasons why Relay has started to come out of its shell, if you will.
OK, so sorry, just so I'm clear, what is the friction point?
The friction point is being able to move your assets across chains.
OK.
Yeah.
OK, Relay solves that.
We try.
They do a good job.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The other side we see is friction from legacy on-ramps. So there can be a lot of very traditional on-ramp providers where they'll have siloed KYC. It makes KYC sharing very difficult. And so as a user, each time you want to use a new on-ramp, you're having to go through a completely net new experience, regardless of how many times you might have used the site itself. So that friction can stay, and crypto to crypto can be solved with places like Relay, but you still have issues if you're trying to use a net new on-ramp provider that can be very frustrating for a first-time crypto user.
I'll give a non-technical answer, I guess, which is I think there's a lot of friction in terms of the trust of the industry and everything that's come with crypto and all these different hacks and exploits over the past few years. And people are just scared, I think, to use crypto. And so I think that's a point of friction.
OK, yeah, we're all trauma bonded here together from the last few years of crypto, although it's gotten better. But on that point about trust, how do you think about someone, whether it's a user or an enterprise for that matter, how do you convince someone that what you're offering is a better solution to what they're doing?
Yeah, I think it depends on the type of user and the type of audience you're going for. Obviously, analogies to what they've already used before help kind of build, I guess, competence and understanding of the product itself. And then, I think just making it as easy as possible for people to onboard with partners like these people on stage here with me. But I can kick it over to them.
Yeah, I think from our side, the nice thing about doing payments as high level as we do is you only really feel the friction of payments when something goes wrong. If it goes right, it means no one has any complaints and you don't even notice you're using potentially even crypto. So for us, that friction piece is often removed, and if we do our job well, we're going to help drive people to dApps which are incredibly enjoyable and novel to use, rather than have people think about taking steps to get through on-ramping or swapping or bridging their tokens.
And are you in those conversations? Do you have enterprise partners, or are you mostly in a dApp world?
Yeah, we're looking into working with a lot of neobanks as well at the moment. So you can imagine every neobank wants to be able to settle in stablecoins or take stablecoins in and not have a barrier there between fiat. The next stage from there is, okay, well, the people who hold stablecoins probably also hold variable tokens. They might have Bitcoin, they might hold Solana and Ethereum. How can we work with those neobanks to make sure that any net wealth a user might have can also be assimilated into the neobank or institutional world as well?
Interesting. OK, trust. How do you manage it?
I think working with a lot of our very, very close partners and collaborators like Fun to be able to provide ultimately a very, very fast experience, whether you're going to Tron or whether you're going to an Ethereum L2. It needs to feel the same across the board, just like you would expect in a Web 2 environment. And to be able to kind of offer things like gas sponsorship or SLAs for partners so that they have guarantees and can kind of trust when things do go wrong, we take on that risk, and we will kind of make sure to kind of solve, not to use a literal term, but like solve things accordingly and make sure the experience for both the partner and their end users is as reliable as they should expect.
Yeah, and then at the chain level, like the longer your funds are on the bridge, the more times they get stuck. All of that just deteriorates trust over and over again. And so everything that they're doing to try to solve for that is obviously really important.
Yeah, we're all responsible. I actually had this thought after our live stream that I wanted to ask you. What's the oddest swap or bridge that you've ever seen, or like, yeah, what's the weirdest thing that you've seen come through on Relay? Not that you're watching the transactions, but
Just watching the transaction log. I remember early on when I first joined Relay, one of the wildest things was seeing, someone who would be a peer competitor, if you will, who was using us to rebalance.
Oh, okay.
Which is wild.
Okay.
But then I think you'll just see insane sizes of transactions on these long tail chains, and the frequency of these transactions. I'm like, what are these users doing?
Totally.
It's honestly incredible. But I think we're very, very lucky that we've been able to build that trust with partners and users alike.
Yeah. Okay. Mainstream adoption is a phrase that we hear all the time at things like this, and it can be to the point of exhaustion, where we're like, okay, let's set this down. But I'm curious. Obviously, it's something that we all think about, we all want. What does it mean for your specific thing? And is it a number? Is it a vibe? But what does mainstream adoption mean for your product?
Yeah, so you can think of Katana as a chain, or actually like a super app that's very degen focused, and so it's hard not to see prediction markets on stage and think of Poly Market and some of those kind of applications, which I believe actually have hit it. I think mobile is a huge key here, and so for Katana's application, once we kind of get to V1 and V2 and start innovating, seeing that go up on the App Store and these kind of things, I think signals
on the App Store. Okay. I just feel like it's good to have what's the black or white thing where it's we've hit it or we've not hit it, and I think on the App Store is a great North Star. What about for you?
I think from our side, we're integrated with Poly Markets, so we're already there where the majority of the funds are from a retail consumer lens in crypto. The next stage is how can we tap into Web 2. Our mission statement is how can you remove the technological barrier to entry for value exchange, meaning every time you go and purchase anything online, how can you use your entirety of your net wealth to be able to execute that transaction? For me, that comes into looking at...
Sorry, can you explain what you mean by that?
Of course. So if you imagine today going and purchasing something with crypto, whether that's an NFT or whether you're entering into a trade, there's a little element of you that has to think about what am I doing to connect a wallet? What am I doing to be able to swap one token to another, to even prepare myself to enter into this dApp? Well, before we were working with Poly Market, you could only send in USDCE on Polygon. Now you can send in Solana, Bitcoin, Fiat. For us, that's worked well on the crypto side. We know that we can solve for crypto, again, using Relay and routing partners to be able to resolve whatever tokens you have. The question then becomes how can you use any other assets that you have? How can you use your fiat, potentially even how can you use your shares on Robinhood to be able to instantly liquidate them at the point of purchase and execute a transaction? And for us, again, we envision a world where anyone, anywhere can buy anything with anything, and you only get that by beginning to think how can you use someone's entire net wealth at that point of purchase. So the metric itself, I suppose, would be how many payment methods can you begin to aggregate that are useful to a user at the time they're looking to execute a transaction or purchase or enter into purchasing an NFT.
My Sephora points, can I use my Sephora points?
Your Sephora points, hopefully one day. And again, this is what we're here for. The more things which become tokenized, the easier it is to remove the intermediary of fiat and be able to use one token for another. And that world is not that far away. We're already doing it with crypto to crypto. We will hopefully do that here every day. And to remove the fiat intermediary is already happening. We're swapping it for a stablecoin. The next stage will be removing the stablecoin journey entirely and just having a very good price differential between your Sephora points and maybe your Amex points.
Maybe then I can stake my Sephora points and get some yield on them. Go ahead, how would you answer the question?
I think even just a parlay from Felix's answer, once we're on parity from a transactions, kind of per month scenario and, payments being made in the realm of what you see with Venmo, Cash Apps, even someday maybe the Visas of the world, and we're still, quite a bit away from that. I think, last month we did somewhere in the realm of $5 to $6 billion in total volume moved, total, assets paid out, and I think Venmo's in the realm of like 65 to 70 million, or billion, excuse me, with a B, a month. So still some ground to cover there.
Okay,
We're
and
catching up though.
what's the barrier to growth for all three of you guys?
I honestly think we're getting close to a point where it's not the tech anymore. Like the UX is almost there. I think it's trust, and a lot of that then comes down to storytelling, marketing, and building, that trust within the users that either saw what happened with NFTs, with
What happened with NFTs?
a bit of a decline in the market. And I think some of it's right. If you got exposed to NFTs, you maybe got hurt, trauma bonded as well. But I think the other piece, right, is like Sam Bankman-Fried and everything that happened there. Like there was a bad couple years. Anyways.
Yeah, I would say crypto is the only industry I know of where, regardless of the political spectrum of the person you're speaking to about it, everyone has an opinion that tends towards a negative. And definitely having been getting into crypto from the NFT world, I spoke to a lot of Web2 enterprises that inevitably will be using NFTs in the future, and they're held back by someone in their office trying to buy a token and getting scammed. I think with crypto, you see something very similar. Even as soon as people understand stablecoins and the idea that something can be still pegged to a fiat currency but having a net advantage of the blockchain, the world becomes a bit simpler for them to conceptualize that understanding. Again, I think from funds perspective, we're coming for all of Web3. We know we'll achieve it. And Web2 is even more exciting, again, because of the scale of it. So the question there is, how do you bring over the traditional payment methods and legacy understanding of legal and compliance teams for some of the largest companies on the planet to make crypto not so much of a scary idea? And I think a lot of that actually is happening, to be fair to them, internally now. They're having those discussions about what would it look like to release a stablecoin. The next stage is what would it look like to pay with Bitcoin or pay with Solana to be able to interact, or again, pay with Avios or Sephora.
What do you think about in terms of barriers to growth?
I think it's a lot different from the infrastructure side versus application and the chain side. So again, I think user experience and account abstraction and a lot of the steps that have been made are honestly a lot farther than we were like 5 years ago. So I think it's like by the day people are continuing to innovate and make things easier to use. But I think usability has been like the biggest historically.
Yeah. Okay, so in terms of buzzwords, we also hear interoperability and composability a lot. And I do think that we're at a spot where that's feeling real. If I were to wave a magic wand and have one integration partner happen for each of your three products or companies that would make a meaningful difference for you, who would that be?
I think this would have to be a Visa answer. Working with the top payments company in the world and starting to get more funds on chain, moving across ecosystems. That'd be pretty sweet.
Okay, Visa. I know there's someone from Visa here. Plant a little seed.
Yeah, I think any of the big payment providers are clear on Visa, MasterCard, Stripe. For me, one that's a little closer to home is I'm from the UK. I'm a big Revolut user. I think Revolut is an incredible fintech app. I think it's been slow to adopt crypto to the level it should, and that is the next stage of what cross-border payments look like. Wise is another one people don't really talk about when it comes to crypto. They're quite anti the kind of overall crypto stance, but if you live in Europe or even here in South America, you understand the difficulties to move cross-border payments on a regular basis. After I graduated, I moved to Ireland, and even moving between Ireland and the UK, which should be two of the closest countries on the planet, is very difficult. And so only once you've seen that friction do you begin to understand the net benefit that Web3 would provide to remove that barrier.
This is completely random, and I just thought of it right now, but if Reddit somehow integrated Katana, where you could swap on Reddit, you could trade on Reddit, you could deposit funds on Reddit, I think that would be pretty wild.
That'd be pretty sweet. Okay, we have 2 minutes left. Just a quick one here. What do the three of you predict to be the breakout narrative or use case or dApp or app for this next cycle, let's call it? Let's start with you.
Okay. I think the breakout meta is going to be seeing the adoption of crypto payments on-chain payments that I've seen in the very little time I've been in Buenos Aires everywhere. I think we are very close to our breakout moment.
Can you tell the story about your vendor who requested?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So we had an event yesterday, and we'll have a follow-up one tomorrow, where we're, working with some partners to bring basketball players together to have a tournament. One of the merch, items we got was a custom Manu Ginobili insignia'd mate mug, and the vendor requested to be paid in crypto, in USDT, on Tron, which was a chain that we just launched support for on Friday. And so I used the app to pay this vendor, which is, like, in my mind, outrageous. But
the dream.
Truly, yeah, I mean, the future of on-chain payments is here and now.
Yeah, totally. Okay,
Yeah, I think, again, this is where it feels most visceral that on-chain peer-to-peer payments works, because, again, there is so much destabilization in the relative countries and in terms of the currencies that are on offer, so it makes so much sense to remove that into a digital world. My hope from more of the US and the European lens is kind of the next stage from there, which is, as I said, a lot of these traditional Web2 businesses, especially the retailers, are looking at stablecoins, they're looking at releasing their own token. I don't think it will be long before they start to either convert whatever you pay them with into that token as a rewards point, or just encourage you and nudge you towards holding that token itself. Once that happens, the interoperability between each one of these brands becomes very exciting. Is Gucci going to have their own token that you can use at Nordstrom, or are you going to be able to take, again, your flight points from one vendor and use them on another? I think that is a world that, certainly when I was in the NFT world, I was trying to work towards.
Totally.
And it never really came about.
It sounds like it's giving me 2021, but I like where you're headed.
think it's almost easier to understand from a stablecoin perspective, because the overall risk from a corporate compliance perspective becomes massively reduced. And if we can get into that world, again, the NFT world, which I really think will be the long-term rewards point advantage, will come back through.
Yeah, I know time's up, but I think more perps, more prediction markets, those will continue to develop mindshare. I think things like Apple Wallet, when they have stablecoins integrated into their wallets, stuff like that, will kind of further propel us. So.
Nice. Thanks, guys. This is fun.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, for all.